All right, now let's get to Joe Hendry. Hendry recently spoke with Matt Camp about the collaboration between TNA and WWE. Hendry, who is currently a contracted talent for TNA, has been granted a unique opportunity to appear on both TNA and NXT, and now he is training at the Performance Center full time while continuing to work on the independent circuit. Hendry described the arrangement as unprecedented and expressed his gratitude to both TNA and WWE for making it happen. He said, I'm in a situation where we're having a historic collaboration between TNA and WWE. It's never been done before in the business. Hendry's dedication, improving his skills, and collaborating with management is testament to exciting possibilities that his partnership could bring for TNA. So, Joe Hendry dropped a bombshell on the Matt Camp show, or the wrestling mat with Matt Camp. Hold on, swig of coffee for Matt Camp. Matt Camp recently turned babyface, by the way. I thought that guy was a joke. He was a host of The Bump, that cheesy ass show. I've never watched it, so why am I judging a show I've never watched? But I've seen clips of it. I've seen clips on Twitter and online and stuff, and it was kind of a bogus show, like a fake, like Entertainment Tonight version of WWE. And so anyway, he was the host of that, and he got fired by WWE, and now he is kind of he's come to the good side. He has a podcast, and he's not slurping WWE one bit. He's not slurping anybody. He's just telling the truth. And he has validated a lot of the claims that have come out of Voices of Wrestling, where WWE PR, Chris Legentil, is sending out misinformation and doing a Russia-like misinformation campaign towards AEW. And he has confirmed that that's the case. And he said he was there while it was going on in WWE. He knew it was going on, but he just couldn't say anything. But now that he's not there, he can talk. So he has validated a lot of the stories that have come out that Joe Lanza has covered, that has since been covered by, Dave Meltzer. Hasn't been covered by Sean Ross Sapp because he's been getting those stories. But Sean Ross Sapp has admitted and confirmed that WWE PR did send him the fake numbers for the Fast Nationals, which are inaccurate for Rampage. So he did get those early on, and he said it was WWE PR. But yeah, anyway, back to the topic at hand. Yeah, Joe Hendry is a full-time student over at the PC while he continues to work his TNA dates. And it looks like he's just going to be a member of the NXT roster going forward for a little while anyway. And, I know that people are saying, Sean Ross Sapp specifically, that Joe Hendry's contract is for a lot longer. He has a lot of years left on his contract, but I think if WWE really wants him, they can have him. And, TNA would probably accept a contract buyout, some type of negotiation for Hendry to go to WWE full time if they really wanted him. And honestly, I'm kind of like expecting that to happen sooner rather than later. I think that TNA probably wants to get through Bound for Glory and do the crowning of Joe Hendry, give everybody that moment, especially if it's going to be in the UK. But I'll be honest, if it comes out that Bound for Glory is not in the UK, if it's not, I think it's a real possibility that they never do the crowning of Joe Hendry because they know what's happening. They know what's about to come. That the WWE wants him, and they're probably just going to hand him over for a price, but they're going to hand him over to WWE. Now, if you're WWE, why not just take him now? Well, I think you got to take the wait and see approach on him. This could very well be an LA Knight / Eli Drake situation where he got over as a meme, but can his matches get over? I've seen Joe Hendry have some good matches, but he has not been consistently a main event performer. He just hasn't. But I thought he looked very good in that 6-way match at Slammiversary. I loved the match with Jake something that he had on a main event. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, this guy, like in the ring, is a real main eventer. That was the first time I've ever thought that about Joe. And then I thought he mixed it up very well at Slammiversary. But again, he's in there with 5. He's in there about 5 with 5 pretty damn good performers at the time. So, So we'll see. So WWE should really take a wait and see approach. Say, hey, what is this meme gonna run out? Is the gimmick gonna run out? Is it gonna lose steam? Do we need to invest a lot in this guy right now, or can we just use him on NXT television through a partnership with TNA, and then when the steam runs out, he can just go back to work for TNA, and we just don't need him anymore. We don't have to. We're not contractually obligated to keep the guy on television, right? Like I think that is a good strategy by WWE. And what it does for TNA, it kind of keeps them in limbo a little bit. It's like, hey, is WWE going to take them or not? Can we plan out our next year of storylines, and can we plan out our calendar? Because if you have Joe Hendry as your world heavyweight champion, you might want to go to the UK a couple more times, right? You might want to do a show in Scotland. Like, it doesn't have to be just London. There's a lot of cities that surround that area that have big wrestling crowds. You could probably do some good business with Joe Hendry as your champion in Europe. And so, do you want to do that? I don't know. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. But we just saw a little bit how it played out with Jordynne Grace. She was at the Royal Rumble. They took a few months off. They, get a little bit closer. Everything moves over to the TNA Plus app, and then all of a sudden Jordynne Grace is doing NXT. She does Battleground. She impressed everybody. She's beaten some NXT talent on TNA television, and then all of a sudden it gets announced that her contract, she negotiated a contract, like a reduced contract, essentially, where she gets out of her contract in January now, which is right in time for the Royal Rumble 2025. So you guys can do the math. You guys can connect the dots. It would not shock me or surprise me to see something similar happen on a more extended timeline with Joe Hendry there, if WWE really, really wants him. And I don't think this is WWE screwing anybody over. It's the cost of doing business when you're a small company like TNA. When you're a smaller company like New Japan or CMLL, when you're sending your talent over to a bigger company, they're going to want to be there. And if the talent gets over, that bigger company is going to end up wanting them. So, whether it happens when the contract expires or not, if the two companies can work out a deal, you see it in baseball with the Japanese professional league and in Korea. When they start getting really popular over there, and when like they get a really, really good player that's dominating those leagues, MLB will come calling, but you have to work out a payment option to that team and to that league. Like, hey, you can't just take our player, like they're under contract too. And so you have to actually give that team some money in order to even negotiate with the player. And then you sign the player to your team. Now it makes that league look lesser than, but I mean, that's just the way it is. And then you get to have that player on your team, right? So when the Angels brought it over Shohei Ohtani, they had to pay a lot of money to his previous team, and they were able to bring him over. It just happens all the time. I can see a similar situation where WWE's like, hey, look, we're going to take Joe Hendry. Here's what we can offer you, and they can do cash. They can do, whatever. It's like, hey, we'll give you like a series of things, and now. But we're gonna have to take Joe Hendry because we think this guy is gonna be over. So it's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how this whole thing plays out, and I'm very curious. I'm like on the fence about whether or not we'll actually get the crowning of Joe Hendry. I think it's a real possibility that we just won't, and it's not because TNA doesn't believe in him. And I see people saying that. It's probably because they know that he's leaving. Billy says, here's why Hendry is more than a catchphrase like a guy like LA Knight. He's very creative and has proven that with numerous song parodies, I think that'll keep him over. Yeah, but how long can the song parody gimmick last? Right? Eventually, you got to, when the bell rings, you have to get over in your matches. It can't be just, the entrance song, the song parodies, the stuff outside the ring. It's like, once the bell rings, can you have great matches? Can you have main event style matches? LA Knight has never been able to do that. Eli Drake was never really able to have like these, 25-minute classics in any company he's ever worked for. That doesn't mean he's not a good wrestler. He is, but there's levels to this game. He's not Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes. He's just not, right? Those guys, once the bell rings, they can go. LA Knight, once the bell rings, middle of the pack, mediocre, right? That's kind of what Joe Hendry's been until lately. I've seen him kind of step it up, but can he do that on a consistent basis? I don't know. We're gonna have to see. Well, I know we'll find out eventually, because I think he is very much so going to be a main eventer in TNA going forward. But yeah, man, all kinds of stuff going down. Let me address this. How about Io says, how about some TV connections and we'll talk some distribution connections and we'll discuss Hendry 2025. Yeah, I put out a tweet. It was pretty funny. I think some people thought I was serious, but where I tagged Shawn Michaels and I said, hey man, if you want Joe Hendry, you got to hook us up with the SyFy TV deal and AJ Styles not only match, but a Hall of Fame induction, as well as an induction for Petey Williams and Bobby Roode. And I think all three of those guys are deserving. And people are like, well, Petey Williams. I'm like, yeah, of course, Petey Williams. Like, he's one of the most influential wrestlers of the last 20 years. The Canadian Destroyer is used in every match. And that was his. And he invented it in TNA. He was a big star early on. I think that he absolutely deserves an induction into the TNA Hall of Fame. He was never the biggest star, but he was very influential on the company. He was one of the early stars of the X division. So yeah, Petey Williams deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So does Bobby Roode. And of course, AJ Styles is one of the greatest of all time. So sorry, coffee for those guys. And I jokingly said that we need to get a SyFy deal. You guys need to work that out. And it's so funny because I was actually going to try to discuss like that possibility if I didn't have anything else going on this show. So I started like preliminary looking at different topics that I could discuss. And one of the things that I thought of was just discussing possibilities of TNA on SyFy because I had seen some people talking about that, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. But I realized I just don't think it's a realistic possibility, so I wasn't gonna waste any time on it. But what I will say is that I did look up how many homes SyFy is in, and it's in like 70 million homes versus Access TV, which it says 50 million, but I think it's actually a lot less than that. I would be surprised if they're in more than 25 million homes, but they actually put like what homes are they available in, and that's like people that have that cable system, they would have to spend more money to get access, and a lot of them just don't do that. So but people could have it. There's 50 million people that could have it, but they don't. But SyFy is typically like it's on like your regular cable package. So they're like in 70 million, but 5 years ago, they were 90 million homes. But I think it's a significant increase over what Access TV would be. I just don't see it as a real possibility. Billy says, Demore invented the Canadian Destroyer. Yeah, but Petey is the one that brought it on television, and he's the one that got it over and all that.